Hello and welcome to the 2022 Morristown National Guard block training. We're excited about this year's program and hope you make the most of it. This program offers about 12 hours of training in 30 minutes to 60 minutes or less. So appreciate your service and for showing up for this annual block training. Thanks a lot, guys.
Good morning. I'm Lieutenant Smith. I'm going to be covering the Controlled Unclassified Information Brief, also known as CUI. This is on behalf of the Information Protection Office. This training will cover your required training per the Air Force regulation. It's a new regulation, new requirements that are put out. So the big thing to do is to identify what CUI is, Controlled Unclassified Information. I'm going to tell you what it's not. It's not the protection of classified information. So anything that's marked confidential, secret, top secret, any of that information that you may work with already, that is a separate program. The CUI program is geared toward unclassified information. So any of the stuff that you previously dealt with in the old legacy system, FOUO, PII type information, that all falls into these categories. What I should note is that the FOUO and CUI programs are not one and the same. So anything that was previously marked in the old system of FOUO does not necessarily translate over to CUI. In order to understand what information you process falls under CUI, you'll need to go to the CUI registry, which is going to tell you anything that you process, what category that falls in, and whether or not it needs to be protected. The 4 regulations that govern this program are listed here. Something really important to note as well is that when you're sharing this type of information, it's okay to share it amongst other military members that have the need to know other uniforms. But in general, the whole purpose is it's information that's basically built for government or on behalf of the government. So you're allowed to share it with any local type of lawful government procedures or processors or people. For examples of CUI, again, you go to that site, but just a couple of the general legacy things that we think of when we think of FOUO, think of your PII type stuff, think of your contracts, think of military operations, flight schedules, anything that brings any kind of sensitivity to our operations is going to most likely fall under these CUI categories. This just gives you a general example of what was previously the legacy system, FOUO, and how that translates over. As I stated earlier, a lot of that FOUO stuff doesn't necessarily translate. You'll have to go and look. Any of the old FOUO stuff can still be used, but when you generate new documentation or anything based off or derived from the old FOUO stuff, you have to apply the new CUI markings. All the old templates you see in the bottom corner, there was a bunch of them, different cover sheets, different titles, headers, all kinds of different things. That's all translated down to one sheet now, which can be downloaded from the CUI port. For anybody that would like to do any more research on this, get any more information on this, you're more than welcome to go to the training itself. The link is listed here. If you do that, I would recommend you're going to go through the training. You might as well print your certificate, but this training does count as that, so it's not necessarily needed. The deadline for this was 1 March, so we're now accomplishing this now. We'll be good to go. For portion markings, keep in mind, again, FOUO going away. For anything new, you're going to mark it with CUI. That's going to be marked top and bottom of page. If it meets the qualification, you'll have to check to make sure it meets qualifications. And then you'll need the CUI designation indicator box. So anybody that's dealt with classified, it's very similar to the classified process. If you haven't, feel free to contact your unit security manager or the information protection officer to get that done. If you have any questions about the program, again, please contact those guys. They're going to be the source for you, the local focal point for that. And then if there's any type of incidents, if, for example, you send something that had PII via email and you didn't encrypt it, please be responsible and report that. Those things are starting to pop up on our end, and we're starting to see a lot of cases. It's better that you report that than somebody else find out about it later. Next, I'm going to touch up on the OPSEC program, Operation Security. It's myself and Senior Master Sergeant Leanne Bankhead who manage the program for the wing. So everybody in the wing should, at this point, be somewhat familiar with OPSEC. We had the big Secretary of Defense OPSEC campaign push that happened about August, September of last year, where everybody was supposed to review documentation, and I know all of you did. So that was reported to your unit training managers, who accounted for you saying that you guys all completed that training. So with that, I won't break into the specific definitions of OPSEC because, again, we should know that by now. What I'll look at is the desired effects. The desired effects of OPSEC are to protect us as a unit, the operations that we run, the types of things that we do from the unclassified side. So it's very easy for anybody, you've seen our installation, to get a posture, a feel for the way we run operations here. Our job on the OPSEC side, and that's everybody's job, is to help protect those indicators, help to control what is actually being visible, being seen, being heard outside of these gates. The threat. So what is a threat? When you have somebody has the capability to conduct something and the intent that equals your adversary. So that is going to be considered a threat for these purposes. There's a whole 5-step process that goes into OPSEC. For the purposes of this training, I won't break into that, but it was in the training that we distributed back in August, September timeframe. And again, everybody should be intimately familiar with that by now. Again, purpose. So as we identify our vulnerabilities, all of you within your groups have OPSEC coordinators. I'll show you those coordinators on the very last slide. As we go through the information, the coordinators are there to help you to understand what your vulnerabilities are, and you're there to help them understand those vulnerabilities as well, because there's no way for us to get out there and give all that information, gain all that information without your support. By AFI, it's every airman's responsibility to make this program run. So as we review our vulnerabilities, we identify those, we can start to apply procedures that allow our vulnerabilities overall to go down, so we're not in as much concern. We're not worried about as many of the things that we should be. We're protecting our information, we're protecting our operation, and at that point, we can continue to move on to bigger and better things. I'll leave you with this little piece here. This is a little screenshot. It's probably hard to see, but you all have access to this. On your right side, you're gonna notice what's called the Critical Information and Indicator List. All of your OPSEC coordinators have it. It's most likely posted in your workplaces. This tells you what types of information our adversary is trying to collect on. And it is happening right now. The purpose that this whole program is taking such a huge effect throughout the Department of Defense is because we've been giving away so much information. When you take unclassified information and little bits and pieces and you put it all together, it creates a common operating picture for an adversary. So it may not seem like much to just the general person doing their daily routine, but those things build up, and we're here to protect that. So that helps with that information. Please take time to review that, understand it. It's very important that every member understand that. So as you go through, those are your examples. The last thing I'll say is applying the countermeasures. It's one thing to understand your indicators and what's actually being collected, but now we need to address the countermeasures to those. How are we going to protect ourselves from this information being collected by other individuals? You all have access to shred bins. We have 34 shred bins throughout the wing. We manage that program. It's being used. I know it's being used because we get calls monthly about shred bins being filled. Please continue to use those. If you feel like in your areas you need a new shred bin because maybe the one you have is just constantly being overfilled every month, please give us a call and let us know so we can properly address that. Here are all your coordinators per group. You have my contact information as a program manager, also Senior Master Sergeant Bankhead, her contact information as a program manager. If there are any concerns in regards to OPSEC, anything you all need to report, please use this information. Please get in touch with us so we can get this done for you. That'll conclude my portion of the brief.
This is a Law of War in Article 137. I'm Senior Master Sergeant Reyes. Just to keep in mind with Law of Wars, minimal general rules apply during armed conflict. You have your Law of War consistent with no matter where the operation is. You have your rules of engagement, which are more centric to where you're at and mission concerns. You have military necessity to complete the mission. You want to make sure there's no unnecessary suffering. It wants to be proportional, minimum use necessary, and you're only fighting hostile combatants. You have a right to self-defense. Okay, your unit and other U.S. forces from hostile acts, but must be proportional. Your only lawful targets are your military personnel, civilians directly participating in hostilities, your military infrastructures, and civilian property used by the enemy. Non-combatants, your medical people, your chaplains, your POWs, protected popular property and places, you can see there. Your illegal weapons, only what's issued to you and what's limited by the ROE. Your illegal weapons, your poison, ballistic agents, and so forth. Examples, you can't fake injury or surrender. This is for illegal methods. You can't act like you're a civilian or a non-combatant, and you can't misuse protected symbols like your medical symbols and your chaplains. Detainees, your POWs, what they're listed there as combatants, retained personnel, medical, and chaplains. And then when you have detainees, you must provide these necessities, food, water, clothing, and so forth. You have a responsibility to report any violations of law of war, and this is some of the violations by and who you'd have to report it to. You can't just say, I'm just following orders, because if you feel like you're following unjustified order, you could eventually, you have to obey the lawful orders, but there could be some consequences. And then this is the 137 briefing. The purpose of the military justice system is to promote justice. maintain good order and discipline, and promote efficiency and effectiveness. Now, as the Arizona, we have our own Code of Military Justice, is the Arizona Code of Military Justice, ACMJ. Who can commit ACMJ? You got your National Guard members, others lawfully ordered to duty within the National Guard. It goes in effect once you take the oath, and it maintains during that time. So it can affect you even if you're off duty or on duty. This is some of the jurisdiction that applies to us. Apprehension and arrest versus arrest and confinement. The articles 115 of ACMJ, which is your non-judicial punishment. This is how some of the notification procedures are with the Article 15s and some of the rights that you have as a member. Summary of court martials. That's one of our court martials. We have 3 court martials next. We have our special court martials and how it applies. And then we have our general court martials, which are for most serious offenses. Your right advisements, your Article 31 rights. So this applies to everyone when you're questioning someone. Also, if you are being questioned for anything and you're let's say a suspect, you have right to defense counsel. Major Stephen Bands is our area defense counsel for the state of Arizona. So these in the military, we have unique crimes that apply to us. These are some of them: contempt towards officials, insubordination, cruelty, and maltreatment. Some of these do not apply to you if you're a civilian. These are military specific. Punitive and administrative discharges. So your authorized separations, your honorable, under honorable conditions, general discharge, under other than honorable conditions, and then your entry level applying if you haven't been in the service very long. These are some of your bases for discharge and voluntary discharge. The honorable discharge obviously is the highest form of discharge. That's the military saying, hey, thank you, you did a good job. We're going to let you keep all your benefits. You got your general discharge. You've been honest and faithful, but you've had a few problems and stuff. You will get a general discharge. And your other than honorable condition discharge is like, thank you, but we don't need you anymore. You haven't done very well, and you're going to lose a lot of your veterans benefits. So USERRA, it applies to you as civilians, DSGs. When you leave the job and have to come back, you have certain rights to your job, but you also have certain obligations of when you have to report back to work, depending on how long you were on orders. These are some of the employer responsibilities: allow military leave, reinstatement of employee seniority, and so forth. And then your responsibilities. Like I said, if you're on orders for a certain length of time, you have the responsibility to notify your employer within a certain amount of time as to that you want the job back. Any further questions about USERRA, definitely come contact the legal office. We'll give you some advice. Again, return to work. This is labeling more of the days that you have. If you're on orders for a certain amount of days, this is how many days you have to report back to work. And then other things we do at the legal office is wills, powers of attorneys, notaries, and so forth. If you have any questions about anything that we do at the legal office, feel free to give us a call. And this is a list of everyone that's in our office right now. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Lieutenant Ryan Johnson, and I'm going to be going over anti-terrorism level 1 training here within the wing. So some key points to remember when it comes to the anti-terrorism program is if you see something, say something. It's the responsibility of all airmen to contribute in regards to this and defend the base. A big topic with anti-terrorism as well is that all members traveling overseas or OCONUS need to get a travel brief, especially here in this area to Mexico. It's very important. Here are the POCs for the anti-terrorism program. And each group has an assigned anti-terrorism rep. So some significant events within anti-terrorism history at the anti-terrorism level are listed here. I'm not going to go over all of those, but the more important ones that hit home to us are the active shooter scenarios. Most common, we've seen a lot of incidents at Fort Hood that are recent. So those are going to be the more applicable to us on the home station front. It's not something that a large mass scale would attack on, more of your individual violent extremists. So please be aware for that. Violent extremists. So one of the things to consider here at home station, as well as if you are doing any sort of traveling, is are there any extremists in the area? What kind of activities are they doing? Are they hostile, or is it an intelligence gathering cell, or are they an actual violent extremists? Not everybody views America in a positive way as well. You can see, if you're a law enforcement, how they, if they have any impact towards law enforcement specific, or if it's just targeted to certain military groups. The U.S. Air Force Eagle Eyes programs, again, if you see something, say something. That is an OSI program, but it is the responsibility of every airman. So if you see something on base, please bring it up to us, the Security Forces Squadron. We're always trying to defend the base and make it a harder target. So if you see something or have some ideas, please say something to us. As alluded before, people do profile the base. They gather information. People take pictures. And here are some of the things that they do that we can that you can see. So if you notice any of these, again, please say something to someone, especially within the Security Forces Squadron. Violent extremists, terrorists, it's not just something that happens overnight. Here's a roadmap to some of the ways that someone becomes radicalized. So you can see signs and symptoms. If you notice certain things, here are some of the things to pay attention to. Again, if you see something, please make it aware to your chain of command. All right. From an anti-terrorism force protection standpoint, here are some protective tips that you can utilize in your everyday life to make sure that you will be okay and that you will be successful on a day-to-day basis. First and foremost, be anonymous, blend in. If you're going somewhere, traveling, do some research to the local environment, and that way you can blend into where you're going. Plan ahead, have some options, as well as control your situation. Maintain security of yourself, maintain your personal belongings. Don't take your military ID if you don't have to. And then some of the other things is be unpredictable. Even in your everyday life, take a different route to work. Park in a different parking spot. There's a number of different things that we can do. Here are some of the highlights. Random anti-terrorism measures are exactly that, random. They are defined to beef up and provide an asset to us to thwart the enemy. What random anti-terrorism measures do is they project a force that can be larger than what we actually have. It's a random thing that we do on a number of different ways, from checking parking lots to different random vehicle inspections. So these are just a number of things that we can do to make ourselves look bigger and better to prevent an enemy attack on the installation. To go with that are FPCON levels. So there are 5 different FPCON levels, and we'll be going over those each individually, just some of the high points on each level. So the first FPCON level is normal. We have not seen this in quite some time, but this is just a routine security posture, and we haven't been in this since pre-9/11. The next level is FPCON Alpha. With that, there's a possible terrorist activity in the area, and it is still unpredictable, nothing specific or targeted towards that installation. Next is FPCON Bravo, which we are currently in, and that is there is a predictable terrorist threat within the area. So there's verified information that we can say that there's a potential threat to the immediate area. With FPCON Bravo, one of the biggest impacts that we have here is the suspension of the Trusted Traveler program, and that is for everyone's safety, into which we will vet anyone coming onto the installation. FPCON Charlie, the second highest level, and this is terrorists targeting against a personnel and facilities in a specific area. So this might be something to where if there is a known threat for a specific location, that installation will rise to FPCON Charlie. FPCON Delta, this is where the threat or the activity has actually occurred. So if there's an instance, a terrorist attack at an installation, they will go to FPCON Delta, and that is the highest FPCON level that we have. Again, protective measures in these areas, obviously as the threat level increases or if the threat actually occurs, you're going to see a different threat posture from the installation. And here are some of the highlighted things that you might see in those situations. This concludes my portion of the brief.
All right, good morning. I'm Staff Sergeant Spears, and I'll be conducting the active shooting briefing for you all today. This is just a quick overview of things that we'll be talking about today. All right, so first and foremost, what is an active shooter? So basically, what an active shooter is a individual actively engaging in killing or attempting to kill people in a confined area, right? Who are active shooters? Anyone could be an active shooter. This is just a list of a few that has happened in the past. All right, and this is indicators of potential violence. So with these indicators in mind, we all could help to prevent an active shooter from happening here or anywhere else. The acronym we use is ACE. Ask, care, and then escort members who are showing these indicators, right? Because prevention is the #1 defense to a active shooter. All right, so course of action. So #1, have a evacuation plan. Even if others decide not to evacuate, you should figure out your own safety. #2, hide out if the evacuation is not possible. Try to hide in the area where protection is available if the shooter decides to shoot towards you. To prevent the shooter from entering your area, try to blockade or lock the door behind you if possible. And lastly, if the first two fail, try to fight. Try to be as aggressive as possible towards the active shooter. Improvise and use anything around as a weapon to throw or hit the active shooter. When you feel that it's safe, call 911. Right? Take a moment to analyze how you would escape, right? So you want to have a plan put into place before this even happens. And these are two incidents that happened. First one was in Washington Navy Yard, where a 34-year-old by the name of Aaron Alexis shot 12 people and injured 3 others. And this was done at the Naval Sea Systems Command. And the second one at Fort Hood, Texas, was done by a U.S. Army Major, Nadal Hassan, who killed 13 and injured 30, which makes it the deadliest active shooter on a military installation. This concludes my briefing.
Good morning. My name is Technical Sergeant Alanis. I'm going to be your instructor for this block of instruction. You might be asking yourself, why is it important for us to pay attention to information, personnel, industrial security? It's important because it is of critical importance as it pertains to mission success. What is information security? It's the ultimate defense of all components as it pertains to information, protecting it from unauthorized integrity challenges. We want to protect these measures at all costs. We know the defense of these assets is of utmost critical importance. Therefore, we must take appropriate measures to ensure its safeguarding. Safeguarding is critical to the mission success. We must all actively ensure that the classified material or controlled unclassified information is safeguarded at all times. If there are any questions in regards to this, contact your supervisor or unit security manager. Once these measures, in the event they fail to be met, we have what's known as a security incident. We must take every step possible to avoid security incidents. Here are just a few examples of security incidences that can be highlighted in the event we misstep, such as security containers left unlocked. To avoid these incidences, we must ensure the standard is set in determining personnel and their eligibility. There are several steps to ensure that this is followed through 100% to ensure that the eligibility for access to classified information is met as it pertains to mission success. It must be trustworthy in all facets of personnel security. Just as with anything as it pertains to military members or civilian contractors, there's a purpose for these functions. As each component of the wing has an important role in the mission success, we must include all military members and civilians to see that they have the utmost importance pertaining to information security. It includes entry into military service and all civilian contractors as it pertains to the mission. The personal security information has its purposes. Through these purposes, there are different types of security. The components of PSI are your T1 through T5. This includes your reinvestigation, which is conducted every 10 years, and your background investigation. Through the personnel security, those entities are responsible for several functions of industrial security, such as classified information. Industrial security, we must identify and protect these measures pertaining to national security in all facets, such as the military members we have here at the 162nd Wing, as well as all civilian contractors that we see driving here each and every single day. Much like the purpose of PSI, there is a purpose for industrial security. Purpose is to, of course, safeguard the important and critical information as it pertains to the mission success. This is referenced by the executive order, as you can see below. The DoD global perspective is implemented through the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. Those of you unfamiliar, NATO is an acronym for North Atlantic Treaty Organization. The members to include all these countries such as United Kingdom, Germany, and of course the United States. The National Security Authority for the United States and their implementation into NATO is the Secretary of Defense. All the pertinent and authorized individuals requiring access or the need to know must provide documentation for the proof of training. This includes a briefing, rebrief, debrief certificate. This form is required to be completed and maintained by the unit security manager and or the IP office as it pertains to NATO. This concludes my portion of the briefing at this time.
Good morning. I'm Staff Sergeant Laguna, Security Forces S2 Intelligence. Today we're going to be covering counterintelligence. We'll be going over some definitions and some things to look out for when it comes to counterintelligence. First, we're going to start with the definition of intelligence. So the definition of intelligence is pretty much gathering information, and it puts us at an advantage knowing what our adversaries are doing or planning to do. So counterintelligence, it's pretty much protecting information. So it protects us against espionage, sabotage, or assassination conducted by foreign governments, loss of technology and information. So now we have treason. So treason is betrayal. So you have anyone owing allegiance to the United States conspires against the United States. So now we have espionage. Espionage is spying. So the process of spying to obtain secret information or classified. Now we have sabotage. Sabotage is intentionally damaging. So intentionally damaging national defense property with the intent to interfere with national defense. Now we have subversion. So this is inciting military or civilian personnel of the Department of Defense to violate laws, disobey lawful orders, with the intent to interfere with the military forces of the United States. Finally, we have the counterintelligence threats. So we have traditional. These are countries openly targeting the United States. We have non-traditional. So these are not previously considered threats to the United States. Could be former allies. And then finally, we have information mercenaries. So this could be computer hackers, aircraft spotters. And finally, situations you must report. So unofficial contact with foreign diplomatic establishments, intelligence or terrorist organizations. We're going to have requests to gain unauthorized access to classified sensitive information or passwords. And finally, the installation of unauthorized hardware to classified or unclassified information systems. Report any incidents or indicators to security forces immediately by contacting myself or Chief Master Sergeant Hawkins at 6209. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Major Marchetti from the medical group. Today I'm going to talk to you about line of duties. This overview, the things we're going to talk about, primarily we're going to talk about what an LOD is, when you need it, and who you need to contact if you feel like you're eligible. The main purpose of an LOD determination is to ascertain whether a service member's injury or illness occurred in the face of them being absent from duty or potentially related to misconduct. The most common reason would be for that, like for example, someone was in a motor vehicle accident and it comes to find out that there was alcohol involved. Probably the most common that we encounter is related to determining whether it existed prior to service. And if so, was it aggravated by their service? And in this situation, I have an asterisk by aggravated, because aggravated in this scenario means it has to be a worsening of that disease or illness or injury that was above and beyond natural progression of that injury. LODs are much more common for the Guard. It's the primary reason for that would be for medical care, the access to that. There are programs associated as far as MedCon and INCAP, but those are much less more frequent. And so that's something that we could assess individually as far as eligibility at the med group. So any active order, someone potentially could be eligible for an LOD. This also applies to inactive duty as far as drill status, AT days, some flight days. It includes travel. If you are an out-of-town individual and then you're coming in the Friday before drill, that's something that would be covered. Of course, Saturday and Sunday of drill is covered. Of note, Sunday, your coverage ends assuming that you go directly home from drill on Sunday. So, for example, if you stop and you meet some friends, instead of going straight home, that's not covered. The service member has some responsibilities as far as line of duty related to an injury. First and foremost, by AFI, you're directed that you need to report the injury both to your chain of command as well to the med group within 72 hours. If something is requiring immediate medical attention for an injury, that's something certainly the command or med group could notify the person that they need to just go to urgent care or ER. They will complete a statement of circumstance, which that's something that just gives us the details and the timing of what the injury was. You'll also have to provide a copy of either your drill roster or the order that you're on, as well as any civilian medical documentation. And I just want to note here, this is from your treating provider. So that could be notes from your primary care, that could be from the ER. Delays in reporting an injury or illness, that's something that could prevent you from getting reimbursed. So an example is if you got injured and you hurt your back while you were on a duty status, but you sought care through a specialist or you had an MRI that was done, there's a good chance that those will not be reimbursed. And if any injury is not reported within 180 days of the end of the order in which you're on that it happened, then you're considered fit for duty. And at that point, any medical care that you receive would need to be pursued through the VA. There are a few situations where latent onset is expected. So some situations, as far as PTSD, sometimes sexual assault related things, those may be eligible where others would not. These are the three main types of LODs. By far, the most common is administrative. So an LOD determination can be made without actually having to do the Air Force Form 348. This is, like I said, by far the most common. It's something that the provider, it would be myself or Major Hoy, would also look at the information provided from the treating provider, look at a copy of the orders, and make that determination. If there's something that doesn't need ongoing care, that could be just documented administratively in the electronic medical record, and then that's the end of it. For injuries or illnesses that require more of a workup beyond that initial visit, that's something that we would start an informal LOD. And so same process applies as far as the items that we're responsible for the service member to provide. And then this actually gets routed in the system called electronic case tracking, ECT. So medical will be the one to sort of initiate the LOD and determine your eligibility. However, FSS is actually the program manager for that. By far, the least common is a formal LOD, and that's for strange or sort of concerning circumstances, or a commander could also order an investigation. So they will appoint an investigating officer. That investigating officer will work with both legal as well as medical to help them generate the report and determine their findings. That will require ARC finalization up at NGB. The determination board, again, as I said, that's up at NGB. That includes a representative from medical, legal, as well as personnel. These are the LODs that require finalization. So pretty much anything beyond just a basic injury will require that. And certainly any questionable cases will go to them for review. And if an LOD is not considered approved until it is finalized by that board, in the situation that it's not finalized and someone requires more immediate care, once it's signed by the medical officer and their immediate commander, that's considered interim, and they can receive medical care if needed at that time. But that said, that still doesn't mean that the whole determination has been made. So for medical care, once an LOD is finalized, the med group sends a copy of that to what we call a TOPA over the 355th medical group, as that's the most common place people receive care. If someone is an out-of-towner and they need to get it somewhere else, typically that's something DHA Great Lakes will handle, and that's much less frequent, so that's something you would just discuss eligibility, and med group could help facilitate that. LODs are good for 365 days. This question comes up a lot to medical group. So if care is required beyond that time, there are a couple options. So one, you're probably looking at a fitness for duty type of review to determine, is that issue, if you still require care beyond a year, is that person still fit for duty? And so that's something you may enter into the DES, or the disability evaluation system. Also, if it's something that's just routine and it's not something that's unfitting for service, you would have to proceed with the VA. VA.gov is where you would go to try to initiate that. You would provide them a copy of that LOD and they could see you for continuing care. So the bottom line is, if there's an injury that you feel like is related to your service or occurred while on some sort of approved military status, make sure you're reporting that to your command and to medical group. And we need the statement of circumstance, the copy of the orders, and your civilian medical documentation. All of that stuff is required before we can even kind of make a determination on whether this meets eligibility criteria. And most LODs, as I said, are administrative. And so, don't anticipate everything will be on an LOD form. These are the POCs for medical groups. So that's going to be your main point of contact. The techs initiate the LODs once they receive all the documentation. And then I'm the primary medical provider that does the LOD determinations, but Major Hoy has also joined our team to be able to do that as well. These are the references.
Good morning. I'm Senior Airman Flores. I'm going to talk to you about the Air Force Survivors Assistance Program. The Survivors Assistance Program is designed to provide resources for wounded or deceased airmen's families. It consists of both the VRED, which is also known as the Record of Emergency Data, and Service Group Life Insurance, also referred to as SOEs. It is life insurance up to $400,000 and includes traumatic injury insurance. To ensure proper distribution of benefits to your family members, ensure that you update this annually, VRED, SOEs, and the recall roster. The recall roster contains contact information that must be changed as well, and it can be changed on MilConnect or virtual MPF through the VRED. For any changes on VRED, they can be made on virtual MPF. Changes for SOEs can be done on MilConnect. Always ensure that your family members are aware of your intentions in regard to your benefits. VRED currently has a compliance of 80%. SOEs has a compliance of 84%. AFPAS is a site where we account for personnel. In case we would enter an event in the AFPAS site, and it could be an event that's natural or man-made, or it has a potential widespread injury or death to you or your family members. When this occurs, an event, you would have to go in there, account for yourself and your family members, take a needs assessment, and the needs assessment will provide your unit with any needs that you may have. To be ready in case of an event, you must create an account in our Air Force portal or in the Wing app, and it also has to be updated annually for all the contact information that's entered in AFPAS. If you have any questions, please make sure to contact FSS. Thank you.
Good morning, 162. I'm Master Sergeant Jimmy Sanchez, and I'm here to brief Records Management, Privacy Act, and the Freedom of Information Act. Currently, it is the law. Current DoD policy is to maintain, preserve information. Some examples of this information are going to be your email, web pages, IM, social media, paper copies, and electric copies. Anything that has to do with any function on the base are considered records. It is all personnel's responsibility to participate in recording, creating, and identifying and protecting these records. Please be advised that any non-compliance of this could result in a fine or up to 3 years confinement. Do not conceal, remove, mutilate, obliterate, or destroy any records without prior approval. In any attempts to do so is a violation of Title 18 USC. This is very important because all records managements do hold value. They are used to provide data for Air Force decision-making and as well as protecting the organization and its members. Some of the organization systems we have in place are our file plans, our O drive, our Y drive. Why do we organize this? Because most records do hold value. However, as time progresses, that value then tends to depreciate, and we do need to organize these old drives. So please do not store any personal information on these drives. There are currently multiple shred locations, PII protective, Privacy Act, safeguarding personal identifying information. Again, it is everybody's responsibility. Some PII or examples of PII information are going to be driver's license, social security numbers, addresses. Any personal information of our current members must be protected at all times, and it is everybody's responsibility. Any notification of compromise or of this information shall be made aware of your security managers as well as supervision. Some examples of sensitive personal information are driver's license, social security numbers, birth dates, and any kind of biometric information. When utilizing PII or any information throughout the wing, Privacy Act data cover sheets must be used to prohibit any kind of disclosure of any personal information to other wing members or any outside third party. Knowingly and willfully disclosing Privacy Act protected information is a violation. Freedom of Information Act. The Freedom of Information Act is a law that gives you the right to access any information from any federal government. In order to do this, a Federal of Information Act request must be submitted by an individual and be approved outside of the 9 exemptions. Any information on this, please give me a call. I'm at 295-6638. Thank you.
All right, good morning. My name is Major Swope. I'm with the 162nd IG Complaints Resolution Office. I'm here to brief the mandatory No Fear Act training today. Because common sense isn't always common, sometimes Congress has to legislate it. So on May 15th in 2002, they passed the Notification and Federal Employee Anti-Discrimination and Retaliation Act of 2002, known as the No Fear Act. The purpose of the No Fear Act is twofold. The first is to inform the employees of their rights and protections against discrimination and against retaliation for whistleblowing. And the second is to require federal agencies to submit reports and provide information of their violations. These are the 10 protected classes that you will not be allowed to be discriminated against because of race, color, religion, sex, national origin, age, disability, marital status, political affiliation, and sexual orientation. Reprisal would be suffering a negative personnel action or the withholding of a positive personnel action in reprisal for making a complaint for a violation of the No Fear Act. So whistleblowers are protected from that, in addition to participating in protected activities. These are 2 definitions of anti-harassment. Sexual harassment can be summed up with leadership should provide a professional atmosphere where all airmen are treated with respect and decency. If you do that, we won't have any problems. It's a policy of the United States government, Department of Defense, the Air Force, the wing commander, your group commander, and the squadron commander that there is a zero tolerance of unlawful discrimination to include sexual harassment of any kind. Any violations of the No Fear Act should be reported to the MEO or EEO office, Lieutenant Colonel Randall, Lieutenant Hopper, Tech Sergeant Dobson at 7052. Any restriction, reprisal, violations of a non-No Fear Act you should contact the IG office, and our extension is 7320.
Good morning. My name is Tech Sergeant Mendez, and today we'll be going over the Government Travel Charge Card. Today's overview of the Government Travel Charge Card will include the purpose, regulations/guidance, benefits of using a travel card, types of travel cards, travel card limits, traveler's responsibilities, authorized use and misuse. The purpose is for DoD policy that the Government Charge Card will be used by all DoD personnel, military or civilian, to pay for all costs related to official government travel. This training does not cover the Travel Card 101 refresher, but there are slides that can be found in the Y drive under Common Use under the Auxiliary Block Training that will be required by all members of the 162nd Wing to review and to contact your APC so they can go ahead and mark you off as a Travel Card 101 refresher training completion. So regulations and guidance. Public Law 105-264 mandates GTCC use to pay for costs associated with official government travel. Public Law 107-314 requires split disbursement of all voucher payments directly to the government travel charge card vendor. Public Law 109-115 requires evaluation of travelers' credit worthiness before issuing the government travel charge card. GTC regulation governs the government travel charge card use and DoD travel card program. Commanders and supervisors at all levels must ensure compliance with this regulation. Travel card statement of understanding indicates understanding and acceptance of terms of proper use. All DoD cardholders must sign before receiving travel charge card and sign every 3 years thereafter. Traveler benefits. No need to use personal funds, as convenient as a credit card, no interest charged or annual fees, direct payment through DTS, applying does not affect your credit rating, safeguards to prevent delinquency, and provides insurance for lost luggage and travel accidents. DoD benefits. Facilitates reporting to help track travel spending. Reduces needs for advances. Reduces collection fees. Allows lodging tax exemption in some states. Allows use of GSA City Pair program. Improves unit travel readiness and earns rebates for usage. Government travel charge card is also known as the individually billed account, used only for payment of official travel expenses, not for other personal or non-travel expenses, and not for other traveler expenses. Travel card types. There are the standard, which is issued for qualifying credit scores of 660 or above, and there's a restricted if your FICO score is below 660, or you decline a credit score check and you complete an alternate credit worthiness assessment. Both standard and restricted remain active after verification of receipt. Credit limits. Limits for a standard and restricted cards are as shown. Standard card, the credit limit is $7,500 with an ATM limit of $250 and a retail limit of $250. A restricted card has a credit limit of $4,000 with a $250 ATM limit and a $100 retail limit. Traveler's responsibilities. Immediately verify travel card receipt. Check with APC before first use of travel card. Ensure APC and the government travel charge card vendor have your most up-to-date contact information. Take advantage of lodging tax exemption. File voucher within 5 duty days after travel. Schedule DTS partial payments for long trips. Review online account or mobile before, during, and after travel. Review account statement in a timely manner. Report lost or stolen travel card to APC and the government travel charge card vendor. Report request for travel card account information to APC. Never provide the travel card number or your social security number over the phone. If in doubt, call the government travel charge card vendor to confirm. Notify APC when you change organizations. Pay balance due in full, regardless of the voucher status. Ensure DTS profile has accurate GTC information. Updating your DTS profile. When logging into DTS, you can update this through your new created authorization, or you can go into the top right corner where your name is at and click on the drop down and select My Profile. You'll then go and click on the EFT credit card account, and you'll ensure that your government charge card has the most up-to-date information. If your card number or your expiration date need to be updated, ensure that you are making the corrections down at the bottom and that you are hitting save in order for it to save to your profile. Authorized use. Must use for authorized travel-related reimbursable expenses whenever a credit card is accepted worldwide. Some of the most common authorized use is for transportation expenses, lodging expenses, meals, miscellaneous travel, not mission expenses. Misuse. APC must report misuse to your supervisor and your commander/director. May result in administrative or disciplinary action. Military members per Article 92 UCMJ and potentially other UCMJ articles. DoD civilian employees, most severe action include removal from federal service, all others possible criminal prosecution. Examples of misuse include the government travel charge card for adult entertainment, gambling, personal expenses, expenses for a person other than the cardholder, other than the dependent while on a PCS travel, and excessive ATM cash withdrawals. Recap. The government travel charge card is used for official travel for authorized travel expenses, law and guidance that govern the travel card. Public Law 105-264 mandates travel card use. Public Law 107-314 mandates split disbursement. Public Law 109-115 mandates application credit score checks. GTC regulation governs the travel card program. Travel card statement of understanding explains program guidelines traveler agrees to apply. Safer than cash, convenient as a credit card. Types of cards, we have the standard and also the restricted. Bio voucher within 5 duty days after travel. Pay balance due in full regardless of voucher status. Ensure DTS profile has accurate government travel charge card information.
Hi there, my name is Chaplain Nathan Snyder, and I have the privilege of being one of the 3 chaplains who get to serve the 162nd Wing here. There are 2 important pieces we're going to be going over today: religious freedom and protecting your First Amendment rights, as well as the role of privileged communication with yourself. So 2 areas. The first one, religious freedom and protecting of your First Amendment right. Spiritual resiliency is a key ingredient to success, not only with our mission, but also with you individually in your personal life. It's the idea of getting into giving time and investing into something that is bigger than yourself. And so one way that that happens is as you serve on a UTA, your right to worship is also protected as a part of that. And so we provide worship services for you. This includes our Sunday morning worship service, 0800-0900 for Catholic and Protestant service. But the main way that we find out what services to provide and how to take care of you is through a spiritual needs assessment that we email out, and it'll be right about now during this time. So please check your email boxes for that. But that allows us to see what needs are around, as well as the timing that works best for you and your schedule. So please take time to fill that out. The second piece is privileged communication. What this has to do is it's completely confidential communication between you and a chaplain. It means that I don't have the ability to disclose anything that you talk with me about. In fact, it's another way of saying that is that you own the information that's in that conversation, which means the only way that information can get out is by you specifically sharing that, or you writing down and signing a paper that says, yes, chaplain, you may go ahead and disclose this because it helps me in some way. This is a great opportunity for you to receive spiritual care, but it's also much more than spiritual care. It's big life issues to small life issues. It's a way to try to prevent things from getting too big. And so please use that opportunity. If you're seeing this right now, if there are issues that have been going on, I say all the time, having issues in our life is not a problem. People have issues all the time. Where the problems come is where we intentionally and unintentionally ignore those. And this privileged communication piece is meant to be literally a lifeline to say, listen, don't go alone on that. And so as we go to our next slide, I want to make sure to point out that we have our 3 chaplains here. And these are our cell phone numbers. And so the most important piece I could say right now to you as you're here is please jot down one of these numbers. Take this slide, print it off, put it next to you. And as you or maybe your family member or somebody that you work alongside has an issue or pops up, please reach out to us. We are available by text or call anytime, and we are looking for that call. So please text or call. It is our honor to serve you as your chaplain team. Please use us. Thank you.
Good guard day, 162nd Wing. My name is Tech Sergeant Alan Dobson. I'm with the Equal Opportunity Office here on base. Those beautiful faces that you see up there right now are your new faces for the EO office. We have the EO director now, who is Second Lieutenant Aaron Hopper, and I am your EO advisor. Going to go over a couple of objectives today with the EO office. We're going to go over our protected classes and a couple of other things with that. Protest activities, the MEO versus EEO complaint timeline, and also your personal responsibility and our personal responsibilities as guardsmen as it pertains to equal opportunity. So what gets us here is, of course, the Title VII Civil Rights Act of 1964. That is anything that falls up under the Big Five. Prohibits the employment discrimination on the basis of race, color, religion, national origin, and sex. And sex is to include sexual orientation or an individual's gender identity. some people might be thinking, well, what if I think somebody's discriminated against me on the basis of my age? Well, age does not apply to military personnel, but age discrimination does apply to any state employees. So there is that difference. Age does not apply to military personnel. Unlawful discrimination. Unlawful discrimination is defined as any unlawful action or employment practice that denies equal opportunity to persons that fall under that big five. We're talking about jokes. We're talking about isolation. We're talking about any rules that are made differently for a person just because of any of those big five, once again, and they are excluded just for those reasons. Sexual harassment. So sexual harassment is any form of discrimination that involves unwelcome sexual advances. These can be verbal, physical, and nonverbal. These also include any social media or other forms of electronic communication. We have touching, we have staring. We also have just asking asking those too personal questions about someone's sex life. None of your business, leave it alone. So in response to the January 6th attack on the Capitol, the riot there, this is actually a reminder, and it has been put on my radar as well for the EO office. So we have Department of Defense Direction 1325.6. That was actually dated November 27, 2009. So like I said, once again, this is not directly in response, but this is a reminder. Military personnel must not actively advocate supremacist doctrine, ideology, or causes. Now you might be thinking, well, what about my freedom of speech? This is still prohibited for military personnel up under these actual rules. If you're on duty, if you're in a foreign country, if the activities constitute a breach of law and order, violence is likely to result. And also if you're in uniform and in violation of DOD Institution 1334.1. The MEO versus EEO complaint timeline. Drill status guardsman. AGR guardsman, you have 180 days to come to the EO office and file a complaint. That's 6 regularly scheduled drills. For state technicians, you have 45 days, 45 calendar days to come to the EO office and file a complaint about discrimination. At the Air National Guard level, all complaints start off at the informal level. I will actually advise, though, before coming to our office, which you can come at any time if you want, but try and handle it at the lowest level possible first. If you can, with your first shirts, your section supervisors, please do so. So we can, but also you can come to the EO office and we can help advise on the options that you have. So your personal responsibilities, our personal responsibilities as guardsmen. So 1, set a positive example on and off duty. Remember, we are at most times the pillars of our community. 2, confront inappropriate behavior. Do something, say something. Reverend Martin Luther King quoted, "Our lives begin to end the day we become silent about the things that matter." Clarify perception versus fact. Perception is your view on what happened because of your past experiences versus the fact, which is actually who, what, when, where, and why that thing happened. Also, notify within the specified timelines. Once again, 180 days, 6 regularly scheduled drills for DSGs and AGRs. For state technicians, 45 days. At the end, we're located in Building 1, actually adjacent to the chaplain's office. We have our number here. And outside of UTA weekends, you can contact Lieutenant Colonel Celeste Snyder. She is your SEAM, your State Equal Employment Manager. Thank you.
Hi, 162nd Wing. I am First Sergeant Veronica Wheatley. I'm here to cover family care plans and a First Sergeant sponsored program called MAD. What is Family Care Plan? A Family Care Plan is advanced planning for the care of your loved ones that you are responsible for. That'll be your children or any elderly that might fall under your legal care. So who needs a family care plan? You need a family care plan if you're single. You need a family care plan if you're married, male to male, and you have dependents. You will also need a family care plan if you're legally responsible for an adult or a disabled individual. And lastly, you will need a family care plan if you are divorced and remarried. That was a fancy way to say married or divorced and remarried. So this is our MAD, our new MAD programs. It stands for Morris Airmen Against Drunk Driving. We are piloting this program starting in April. This is for you. This is for you to be able to come home safely. And the rules of engagement are: it will work by you calling us at this number on the screen, and then what will happen is we will just want to know your name, where you're at, and what your home address is. We will take you home, not to any other location. And that's it. We don't ask any more questions. And it's free to you. And this is sponsored by the First Sergeant Council. So we do anticipate and would like for you to use this as your plan B. We'd like you to always go prepared. But in the event that you lose a wallet or anything like that, or your designated driver is no longer able to be your designated driver, fine. Please give us a call. We'd rather see you get home safely with no incidences. And that would be the main purpose of this program. So contact your first sergeant if you have any questions regarding your family care plan. Why this is important is because if at any event something were to happen to you or you were deployed, we have documentation stating what your desired wishes are for your loved one, so that way they are with whom you want them to be.